hopefully it'll work. Right, can everybody see that all right now?
Yes.
Okay. So we're here today to talk about the Community Renewal Fund. This is a fund that's come out very recently from central government, and essentially they're targeting 100 areas across England. A focus of the fund is to support innovation and new ideas in these areas, investing in pilots that draw on local insights and which help places to prepare for the introduction of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So the UK Shared Prosperity Fund will be the funding that replaces European funding, and that comes into effect from next year. Locally, we're quite well represented, so all of the Black Country boroughs and Birmingham are target areas for this fund. So and they're high priority target areas. So hopefully funding will be allocated to these areas. So as far as this fund is concerned, the West Midlands Combined Authority has been designated as the lead authority by the government. As the lead authority, the WMCA.
Yeah.
If everyone could just go on mute. Sorry, thank you.
Just it's already been prescribed anyway, so it was prescribed before. It was prescribed before, but the chemist Lloyd said that it's been stopped. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Lloyd's chemist. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll carry on. So as the lead authority, the West Midlands Combined Authority is responsible for issuing the invitation, receiving the bids, and they will select the bids that then go forward to the UK government for consideration. And the Combined Authority will deal with the paying of the grants to the successful projects and managing their performance. The funding is going to be around 4 key themes. So investment in skills, investment in local businesses, investment in communities and place, and supporting people into employment. I think a key thing about the themes are it's building on what existing work, and when we talk now about the timescales and preferences, you'll understand that. So as a lead authority, the West Midlands Combined Authority will assess all bids submitted, and all bids must be aligned to the UK's Community Renewal Fund assessment process. Bids will be assessed against the gateway criteria, and I can show you how to access that, set out in the UK Community Renewal Fund prospectus. And they said very clearly that bids that fail to meet the criteria are ineligible support and will be rejected straight away. So it's very important that any bids fit in with the regional and national strategic priorities. And it's important as well that any bids can be delivered effectively and efficiently within the sort of timescales that are set out in the guidance. So as far as the amounts are concerned, there's a maximum amount of £3 million available per place. So Walsall Borough would be defined as a place. Applicants are encouraged to maximise impact and deliverability through larger projects. So they're preferring bids of £500,000 plus where this is possible. So it's not a complete no to smaller bids, but there's a definite message there that larger bids and obviously on that basis consortia bids are preferred. The guidance does say that third sector consortia working is supported and encouraged. So there is encouragement for the sector there, but applications have to be received by the West Midlands Combined Authority by noon on the 12th of May 2021. So we're looking at sort of around about 3 weeks from now. So very, very short timescales. And I go on to the next slide. The delivery timeline for this again is very short. So following the assessment, the West Midlands Combined Authority will submit eligible bids which most strongly meet the guidance to the UK government for consideration. The UK government will assess all the bids submitted and against the renewal fund prospectus and announce the outcomes of those bids in late July. From that time, once the West Midlands Combined Authority have got back those results back, they will then enter into discussions with the various successful partners and agree the funding process. The key thing here, so successful bidders will be notified in sort of late July. Funding has to be spent and projects concluded by the 31st of March 2022. So very, very short timescale for delivery. So we're looking virtually sort of 7, the very most 8 months, and that's at a push. So it does look as if the funding isn't necessarily going to be aimed at lots of new projects. It's going to be maybe building on existing projects that are happening, maybe adding a bit extra value to them, maybe extra capacity. There is talk in the guidance about not duplicating stuff that's already being funded. And it does talk about pilots. So I think there are some opportunities for trying things slightly differently. But I think essentially it is building on an infrastructure that's already in place rather than trying to create lots of brand new stuff, simply because I don't think delivery timelines will allow that to happen. So that's it in essence. There are links to other sorts of information, and we can send those out after this briefing. But I think it's back over to everybody now to see what people think. I think essentially we were looking at this meeting as a way to start talking about the kind of things people can offer. And I think One Walsall sees its role as very much a brokering of partners, identifying people who may be interested, who feel that they can meet the criteria that the government have set out. And I'll just stop sharing. And we'll then start to identify who we can put together. I can show you another, if you bear with me a sec, another slide, which I attend the Skills and Employment Board. And when this funding was first talked about, they asked everybody to put their ideas together. So I'm going to show you, just as an example, what we came up with at that board meeting. So can people see a slide now with a chart with lots of different projects on? I'm sorry it can't be any bigger, but basically these are discussions that happened very, very quickly when this fund first came out. So we just sort of went through a range of things and talked about which partners may be able to be involved in various strands of work. So we talked about digital skills for excluded individuals, digital recycling. These are just examples of kind of projects that were very briefly talked about. Digibites, short taster sessions, support people to gain basic skills through community learning, a code camp, mini boot camps for unemployed people to learn how to code, computer coding, skills transfer, Walsall Works Plus, providing local tailored wraparound support to those furthest from the labour market, job matching, sort of various in-work support, so enhancing employment support programs, work-based training, supporting families to engage with local services, raising aspirations within the community, ESA support, so people on long-term incapacity, etc., can be supported back into the labour market where possible. Exploiting social value. So there's a whole range of things. These are just ideas that came out of a meeting very quickly. So not necessarily the right ideas. It's just giving you a brief flavour of the range of types of things that people were talking about, the stuff about social enterprise, digital innovators, productivity factory to help SMEs identify, design and develop growth projects. We might have, amongst everyone who's here today, a range of other priorities and things. I know that we've talked with various statutory partners around mental health as being a big barrier to employment, and how we might work with statutory partners to support around mental health. We've talked about sort of social entrepreneurs, supporting people to set up their own social businesses. So there's a very wide range of opportunities here. So I think I'm going to open up the floor to people who might want to talk through some ideas they might have. And I think the key thing is that I think we're looking to our larger statutory partners, but also larger charities to possibly lead on some of these bids. I think to expect a small voluntary sector group to lead on a bid that's maybe circa £500,000 isn't going to work. And I think we also have to consider that whilst collaborative working is really positive, these collaborations, to make them workable, can only be so big. So whilst it'd be nice to take everybody on board and submit a 500k bid and have everybody get some funding, that isn't going to work, it's not feasible. So we have to look about the areas, and maybe within the people here, there might be 4 or 5 clusters that might want to get together, maybe with a statutory partner afterwards, and work together to form a bid, put together a small collaboration. So what we wanted to get out of today was some ideas that people might be interested in, but we maybe can collate after this meeting and then share with our statutory partners to say, these are voluntary groups who are interested in working around these specific areas. You know, if there's anybody that you want to work with to add value to what you might be considering to bid in for, here's the contact details. The other thing I think to bear in mind is quite a few of the statutory agencies are looking to work cross boroughs. So I think there's quite a lot of talk around Black Country bids rather than just Walsall bids, purely for the fact that, you know, that the sheer amount that you're being asked to bid for and spend within a relatively short time means that, you know, sometimes going on a regional basis is easier to guarantee that spend rather than just focusing on Walsall. But it's very open, you know, there's no right and wrong way to approach this. It's just that we just have to recognise there's tight timescales. So would anybody like to start the conversations? Bruce, you've got your hand up. You're on mute still, Bruce.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Right. WPH is CCG funded for mental health provisions. We possibly could work in partnership providing mental health support, because obviously it's an important factor in both getting people back into work and actually keeping people in work. So I think we would certainly like to explore that possibility of perhaps providing that provision to other partnerships, in partnership working, I'm saying. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that's positive. Thank you, Bruce. Can we just clarify, I should know this, you're just based in Walsall, you don't cover any other parts of the Black Country, do you?
The CCG funding is only for people with a Walsall doctor.
Okay, yeah.
But we do work with schools, and we do if you like, other independent contracts. So we haven't got any major problem with extending that area. But we are obviously based right in the centre of Walsall. Yeah. But we do work from satellite venues. I mean, we used to work out at Darlaston at the Kings Hill Centre, and we do work out to the satellites. So so working at a satellite venue is a possibility. It's not exclusive.
Wonderful, thank you, Bruce. So we've got Angela and then Alex. Angela Armstrong.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
On the terms of supporting people with mental health issues, is anybody looking at green prescribing or outdoor community gardening type work to support people in that way? Hello, darling, 1 second. That was my question. And if that something that any other parties are considering.
Angela, which organisation are you from?
I'm here from the Butts Community Garden, and I'm also here on behalf of Chris McCreary from the Borneo Street Allotments.
Yeah.
I will be passing the recording on to her later. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today. I'm sure she will have some ideas. Okay, sweetheart. I'm going to mute now because I have a small human with me who doesn't quite understand.
No problem.
It might need to be a little quieter, so thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Alex Howard here from the Inspire Group. I think, like everyone, we'd be more than happy to work in partnership, but I think looking at the criteria that Dave pulled up, we'd be very keen on working with young people or at-risk young people, getting them back into work or back supporting the skills that might get them back into employment and training. In ourselves, we'd offer that through sports and activity-based mentoring services, and then building links for those young people that might be interested in that context. But again, we'd be happy to work collaboratively to support any of the other agendas if we can provide that with sort of an activity or a sport-based approach.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex. Andrew Thompson, good to see you.
Hi, Dee. I just want to say that, you know, the two areas that have just been proposed, we work in not on the patch in Walsall, but across the wider West Midlands. And I certainly think that there is something around green social prescribing, you know, to address mental health issues. And obviously, you know, we're going to see, you know, huge need for employment support, you know, particularly for the over 55s and under 24s. I think what gives me real concern, and I know you guys have alluded to it already, is the timescale. You know, I've just literally come off another meeting discussing the CRF, and you know, that they're writing the bid next week. And you know, to go from a standing start to writing a bid next week, and it's a big form, really does give me concern. But you know, yeah, if we can identify, you know, that one or two key outcome areas, then maybe there's something there. But it is a tight ask.
It really is, Andrew, and I think, you know, obviously Dave alluded to that earlier, and this is not the way, and obviously my title is partnership manager, this is not the way that, you know, we would want partnerships to be formed. But actually it might be that it is larger organisations writing the bid with elements of what they hear is happening, and then reaching out to potentially subcontract some of that work if they're successful, and that is simply due to the timescales that we keep talking about. But we'll come back to that. Emma, over to you, and then Ray, I can see your hand up as well, so over to you next. Is that all right, Emma?
Hi, thank you. I think the first thing I'd like to ask is about the monitoring and evaluation that's going to be involved in this, just seeing the timescales, what that's going to look like. And also just in response to Angela about the outdoor working, we work with early help with young families. We have an outdoor allotment and we're trying to go into that a little bit more. So that might be something that if we can get some contact details with Angela, we may be able to look into that.
Fantastic. Yeah. No problem. Ray, over to you. We'll come back to your question in a moment, Emma, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Ray.
Thanks, Dee. I'm Ray from the Refugee and Migrant Centre. One of the things that we have, we're dealing with a number of migrants who are highly qualified and need to go into employment, but also it would be good to have that link with someone in terms of mental illness. What we realize, especially people who are coming through the asylum seeking system and becoming refugee, those are some of the, you know, the mental illness is one of the barriers that preventing them from progressing into work. So maybe that partnership with Bruce or someone will be important.
Yeah. 100%. I think Ray, over the last few days that we've had discussions about this, mental health is something, it's a theme that runs through a lot of the kind of key priorities, whatever you're looking at. So absolutely, point well made. And then I think it's over to, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, Elzbieta.
Yes, Elizabeth. Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. So thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's Europeans Welfare Association Director and co-founder. What seems to me is that we've got a running theme of mental health. I've got a question in terms of what would be considered as a larger organisation, and is it possible for One Walsall to act as the lead organisation in this instance? Because I just need to confirm that, because obviously we've got very short timescales here, and so that's the question really to David and yourself. You know, would you be acting as a lead organisation, and then have we got enough time to form this partnership? Because it's kind of lastminute.com, isn't it, approach, which I don't like personally. But I think combining so have we got the lead? I think we need to start from identifying who the lead would be, and then perhaps send our proposals and start on working group pretty straightforward to see what each organisation can put into it and how this can be interlinked. So if we could agree that perhaps the mental health access to services, working with the BME, refugee asylum seeker communities to support them in the access to that. Another thing I'm thinking of, which I know for running a couple of projects and campaign currently through our organisation, is that there is very little data, particularly from the public health perspective, when working with BME. So is there something we could perhaps utilise? So if each of us can think of what we're currently delivering and doing, as David said, you know, it's about building the capacity and building on existing projects. But finding a common theme for all of us to join forces to support that community cohesion, which we know is very, very important. But I'm just very sorry, guys, but I'm just very, very conscious of the fact that there's so little time to put a good quality bid. We have to be on it straight away, and there is no time for brainstorming ideas. It's literally like, who wants to be part of the working task and finish group? Get the meeting and decide who does what bid, what sort of, you know, work and what sort of work is covered and who's the lead. So yeah, my question to you is, who's the lead?
Okay, Dave, we've got a couple more hands up, but did we just want to come back to the question?
Emma's question. Yeah, I was dreading you'd say that. The thing is, Emma, I don't know, to be honest, and I'll have to look that up for you as to what monitoring is involved. On the paperwork that I've seen, I haven't seen anywhere where it's particularly described what monitoring is needed. But obviously that's quite important, particularly if you're the lead, if you were going to be the lead organisation.
David, do you want me to go through it? Because I have the monitoring information with me.
Thanks, Davina.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I can't put it up at the moment, but I can kind of talk through it. So it talks about some of the, obviously we'll be measured about, so if it's against people, they're going to measure us against number of EI coming through, unemployed, how many employed, businesses it'll be, is it small, medium, large, organisations, public, private, voluntary. Now, the outcomes they're looking at, indicators will be how many people are in educational training following the support, how many people are gaining qualification following support, how many people engaged in job searching following our support, how many people engaged in life skills support following interventions, how many economically inactive individuals engaging with the benefit system following our support. I don't know whether to actually type this up and get this sent out to everybody. Will that be easy? Because it's quite big, the monitoring. Yep. So if I get it typed up, it's going to sent out.
Which document is it on, Tahima? I'll find it. Which document is it on?
The document I have, it's a presentation that was sent out.
Oh, brilliant. So if you could send that out, that would be brilliant.
So if I can pull that off the presentation, I'll send it to you, Davina and Dave, and you can circulate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Emma, so sorry, we'll get that information to you, but obviously there is going to be the usual level of monitoring, although not as heavy as ESF, I would presume. And one of the points we keep making also is some of this work is absolutely duplicating the BBO work already in existence, and some of those outcomes are exactly what BBO are measuring currently. So there are discussions around that. I think, again, I can see hands up. I think Angela and Elzbieta, you might have legacy hands up. So if you can put those down, unless you want to keep your hands raised. Dave, did you want to address the issue of One Walsall being a lead organisation?
Yeah. I think as far as that's concerned, One Walsall could be the lead organisation. We wouldn't rule ourselves out. But I think what's going to be really important on this is making sure that we can find the right lead organisation. But I think the strength of the bid is going to be in adding value to something that's already happening. I think if One Walsall is the lead organisation, it's going to be creating something that's new in a way, because we're not directly involved in this sort of agenda. But we would lead if nobody else was able to lead, and we could identify a clear focus for a project. Then yeah, I think we would lead. But if there's an organisation out there who we can link up with, or we can identify who is a natural partner for that piece of work, then that would be our sort of preference. But yeah, I think we have to be open-minded on this as to how we go forward.
Bearing in mind we haven't got time to be that open-minded, someone needs to come forward, or we potentially need to come forward.
But what we would do, Elizabeth, is I think if we can collate an idea or clear idea, is put it out to other partners and say, this is what we're looking at. If you want to work with us, particularly I'm thinking statutory partners here, work with us. If not, then we'll go ahead and do it ourselves.
Absolutely. So going back to some of the hands in the air, in order, we've got Jeff, then Marie Claire, and then Rochelle. So Jeff, morning to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of comments and a suggestion. The comments are around the timescales, just reiterating what's been said before. This scheme is a pilot for the new funds next year, which are replacing EU structural funds. And if anybody's been involved in structural funds bids, they take months to pull together. So the idea of pulling together a 500k plus project in this kind of timescales is a big ask. Is a real big ask. I think it's going to need an organisation like Walsall to provide secretariat to this kind of project, and it's something that there's a bureaucratic load which is going to have to be taken on, and I think One Walsall could be well placed to do that. We've, from our own point of view, for the people who already know us, we run a creative incubator and a community makerspace in Walsall. Our plans before this came along was to start to create a network of creative spaces across the borough. And we've already been in discussions with a number of partners. That would be the subject of a funding bid going forward, probably to start this off in 2022. This gives us the potential opportunity to put in place a pilot for that network opportunity. And the idea of what we're doing is in these spaces is to provide the facilities where people can start their own creative micro enterprise. And so if we work with partners, we would give them support on equipment selection, training in how to run a micro enterprise, and the cultivation of their creative skills. So if anyone was interested in being part of that kind of project, the digital skills things clearly comes into it. And one other suggestion on the digital skills side, something which we ran in Sandwell for a number of years was a mobile IT vehicle, and it used to go around various estates and train people up on all of the kind of IT which was relevant at the time. I don't know if this pot of money is purely revenue rather than any capital.
I think it's 90%, at least 90% revenue, so it's essentially revenue, Jeff. I think possibly a little bit of capital, but
okay. So the idea of a roaming IT vehicle might not fit this if it requires a degree of capital to put that together. But going back to my original project idea is we're ready to start rolling this out now, and we're already doing our business planning for it. So if anyone was interested in being part of that as a collaborative bid, we'd welcome discussions with them, rapid discussions with them.
Thanks, Jeff. Marie-Claire.
Thank you, Dee. That was just a brilliant, Jeff. I was just going to say this is what I was going to talk about. So I work for an organisation called Plasma of Hope, and we support people with sickle cell and thalassemia, which is a genetic blood disorder. And we've had quite a few of our users contact us asking if we can assist them in some form of training to reskill. Especially during the pandemic, the numbers have really gone up because some of them have had to leave the job because of their medical condition and wanting to get into things like IT and stuff like that. So we would really love to partner with any organizations that will assist us in achieving this. And picking up on what Jeff just said, that sounds really fantastic. And we want to help as many of these people as possible to do something that is within their capacity.
Thanks, Marie-Claire. That's really helpful. Rochelle, over to you.
Hi, so I'm Rochelle and I work for Steps to Work, and we are an employability charity that operate across the Black Country. And I was just wondering, obviously I know that we've got the investment priorities set out, but are Walsall sort of focusing on any priorities in particular? Or we're not really sure about that?
I think all four of them. Sorry, Dave. Sorry.
I would say I think across the board. I'm not sure that anybody's focusing on any particular thing. I think in the guidance it does refer to the West Midlands Combined Authority statutory sort of priorities. So any bids would have to make sure that they link up with the strategy regionally. Again, after this meeting, I can share the documents. The West Midlands Combined Authority have sent a load of links to documents that people can look at. So obviously, any projects that you come up with. But I think various partners are all looking at different, as that document I showed earlier, lots of different ideas from different partners.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything, one thing in particular they're particularly focusing on.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
And also, Rochelle, all four of the key investment priorities obviously fit in with what's going on in Walsall at the moment anyway, so they'd all fit in with local strategy and across the wider Black Country as well, if that helps.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just to backtrack slightly, my understanding is that the total amount that's available to be spent in Walsall is 3 million, and that bids above £500,000 are preferred.
Yes.
So we could do one bid for 3 million or two bids for 1.5 million each.
Yeah.
So in terms of the split of spend, then the total available perhaps for capital spend is a total of 300,000. 10%.
Yeah.
Is that right? So just picking up on the point that Jeff made in relation to, the battle bus idea, that is, it may well be that there's ample capital funding available within that pot to be able to pull together that kind of kit, as it were, or other bits of kit. I mean, it may well be that, purchase of IT equipment, etc., would also fall within that kind of, or purchasing equipment for people to work with, whether it be traditional type equipment, lathes and that kind of kit, or digital stuff. So there could be quite a lot of kit available out of that total, provided we don't do 6 bids of 500,000 each. So that was just my thought, really, as to whether we could do a big bid and have quite a bit of capital in there, as well as the revenue stream. And it may well be then, because this is a precursor to the UK Prosperity Fund, that will really enable stuff to get off the ground, so that when the money from the Prosperity Fund becomes available, then we've got something up, running, shovel ready, as it were, to tap into that funding stream. That's thoughts.
Really good points, Peter. Thank you. Can I just ask Marie-Claire, is that a legacy hand, or did you want to say something else?
No, sorry, I'm going to put it down. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine.
Before I think Bruce had his hand, before he comes in there, just in reflection to what Peter's just said, obviously we gave you, there was 4 themes. There's no financial allocation between the themes. So what you've just said, Peter, is right. You could potentially spend all the money on one of the themes. There isn't a sort of even split between each of them.
We will come back to those points again in a moment, Peter, as well. Thanks, Dave. So over to Bruce and then Michelle.
Sorry to put a sort of negative note in. Just precautionary tale. Showing my age, prior to the launch of the Connections service, there was a fund that I got some money out of that was supposed to be used for modelling for Connections, and then and that was very much like this: money released short term, short notice, got to do it with, got to deliver within sort of 9 months, da-di-da-di-da. And then when the Connection service was launched, they did something totally different. They decided that they were going to do advocacy, not individual projects. And I'm just wondering, is there everything, if you're around long enough, everything comes around again? And I'm just wondering, is this another one? Sorry.
Well, obviously that's a kind of unknown. A good point, Bruce. Absolutely good point. But I think we have to work with what we've got at the moment, and fingers crossed that it plays out well moving forward. But Michelle, thank you, Bruce. Michelle.
Hi everybody, Michelle from Citizens Advice, Sandwell and Walsall. I just wanted to make you aware that obviously we have already in operation one mobile advice unit called Cassie, which operates across the boroughs of Sandwell, and we've just purchased a second advice vehicle who will be named Casper, and he's for operation within Walsall. So I don't know if there's some leverage there within partnership work, is that we've already established with a mobile advice unit, which has continued to go out during the pandemic, which has been like over 300 clients accessing it since November to get face-to-face support. So we're out every day across the boroughs. What I'm saying is we've already got established where we're on supermarket car parks, food banks. We're also in some of the more deprived estates, so we park up on the community church, and so we're already got the venues as well. So I don't know if there's some particularly interested in mental health, because we have a lot of clients that come to us where we're having to signpost because that is additional issues. So I don't know if there's some leverage within partnership working about staff coming out and working alongside on the mobile advice unit, but obviously it takes away the need to purchase those sort of vehicles. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thanks, Michelle. I think I saw a while ago you were on the news about that, weren't you?
Yeah, we were on Birmingham Live, yeah. At the car park.
Brilliant. Really good coverage.
Yeah.
So has anyone got anyone else got any questions that I'm missing hands up or anything? Oh, up they go. Angela Baines.
Thanks, Dee. I just want, it's been very interesting from a council perspective, just hearing you know, how much the mental health and the recurring themes around mental health and employment and skills come up. And I think I just wanted to make aware in relation, I think, to Peter's point, where he seemed to be saying, well, we could put in, or the voluntary sector could maybe go for one large bid of 3 million. I just wanted to maybe advise caution on that, because of course this pot is open to all sorts of organisations. So I think it's, you know, obviously as a council, we are looking at a list of potential projects and working with Black Country partners over on that, and that's obviously why, you know, I'm here and very interested to be hearing about potential ideas that could be coming forward, and whether they're looking at ways that we might be able to work together on that. So if there is a particular bid that the voluntary sector would be wanting to put forward, I think my only advice would be to be looking at making that less than 3 million, because there is competition, not necessarily from the council, but there will be other organisations out there that we are not necessarily aware of that will also be bidding into this. So my gut feeling would be if you were putting in one very big bid, that might have a lesser chance than if you put in a smaller bid.
Angela, thank you for that. I think we were going to come back to that in a few moments, but that's really, really helpful, because I think we used the phrase yesterday in a meeting with another organisation that this is a bit like herding cats for this bid, because there are there are organisations, both statutory and voluntary, who are absolutely wanting to chomp at the bit and go for this, and that's absolutely all well and good. But it's about trying to bring as many people around the table as possible, which may not be possible in this instance, but make it as attractive to the voluntary and community sector as possible. But I take your point, Angela, and actually really agree with you in terms of one big bid of 3 million, I think for any organisation would potentially not be successful, but I don't know. But sorry, Jeff, over to you.
It's a question for David, really. When he shared that screenshot of those projects from the other working groups, my question is, how long have they been working on this? And therefore, why could we not have been working on this at the same time scale that they were working on theirs?
Yeah, I don't think they have been working on them, to be honest. This was, I think the meeting where these came out was about 2 weeks ago, and then it was before the guidance came out as to how to bid. And I think at the time, I think they thought that it was going to be council-led bid. The guidance wasn't out as to how it was going to go, so it was just, I think people were aware that this fund was coming out, but there was no joint. It was literally, we had the meeting one day and we put proposals in the following day, so there was no work on it. So literally, as soon as we knew what the guidance was, which was last week, this time last week, we had a meeting last Monday where the guidance was talked about, and then we pulled this meeting together. So I think everybody is at the same stage. Everybody is still running around trying to work out what they want to do and who their potential partners might be. So I think there's discussions happening daily across, and I think the colleagues putting at the council would say the same thing.
Who pulled that group together?
The Employment and Skills Group. That's the group that meets regularly, and obviously when the first wording of the Community Renewal Fund came out, that was discussed at a meeting, but we hadn't got the details of what the guidance was and how bids would be put in.
I mean, what would be useful, if we're all in this together, that we can see a copy of that, because it might be that we can add value to their projects, or they can add value to our projects.
Well, Jeff, I just say, I'd gladly share that with everybody, but they might not be final projects. They were literally pulled together at a moment's notice. So we had the meeting one day, and literally the same day she said, fill in the form, and any ideas that you've got, send it back, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, just.
But I can share that with I can share that with everybody. That's just an example of within a few hours, people coming up with ideas.
Yeah. I mean, just out of this meeting where I talked about a mobile vehicle, and someone else flagged up and said they've got a mobile vehicle.
Yeah,
immediately with the conversation.
Absolutely. Okay.
And obviously, another key player in this is at Walsall College.
Yes.
So they're another key partner. There's lots of public sector health, council, colleges, the university. They're all potential partners. So all of them will be having conversations both within Walsall, but as I said, also across the whole patch. So there's a myriad of conversations taking place. So I don't think there's any, you don't need to worry there's been any sort of pre-planning and, you only get told about it at the end. Everybody's in the same boat with this.
Okay, thanks.
So I think we'll come up to the people who have raised their hands, but I think at some point, as Dave said, everyone's kind of scrabbling around, and people are looking to start the bids ASAP. It's when potentially people in the room now want to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, well, we want to partner with blah blah blah, or we want to be a lead organisation, and therefore looking for partners who can help us with these kind of areas of the bid. And as I say, One Walsall can support the facilitation of that, or kind of not as a last resort, but we don't see ourselves see ourselves the lead organisation for this. We could be the lead if that's what helps organisations to come together. But as we keep saying, the timescales are really tight, and to excuse my language, there's no time for kind of flapping around here. People have either got to come together on the main themes or a variety of themes. People can put themselves forward as a lead organisation or not. I think is where we are, to put it bluntly. Sorry to sound so blunt. But just going over to hands. First Peter, then Elzbieta, and then Tamina, if that's okay.
Thanks, Davina. Yeah, I'm getting a bit confused at this moment, so forgive me. That it seems that we have partners and now we have competitors in relation to this bidding for this fund. Is that right? That, for example, Walsall College might be doing an entirely separate bid of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we know how many organisations, statutory or otherwise, are looking to put a bid in? Because and what their prospectuses might be. It's just that you know, if we're going to not waste a load of time and energy, then, and if, you know, there's some big players bidding in this competition, as it were, then it may well be that what we need to do is ally ourselves with one of those, and to link with them, rather than trying to do something of our own, you know. So I don't know. Do we know how many organisations have put the hat in the ring in terms of putting a bid together?
I don't, Peter, but it may be, you know, you may find there's several bids from, you know, Walsall Council might be considering putting in several different bids for different sort of work areas. Same with the college, same with health. You know, it's open to everybody, you know, even the private sector. It's open to everybody. It's a competitive process. So if you remember back at the very beginning, I said, you know, part of this might be about us being a broker and identifying what people around the table here can do, and in a way sharing that information with our statutory partners, as you just said, to see if what we're suggesting matches up with anything they're doing, and we can add value to their bid.
So but that needs a meeting with those statutory partners.
Well, it needs us sharing that information, making that information available ASAP, and then I can pass it back through that employment and skills group and get them to circulate it. I mean, it may well be, even then, there might be other people putting in bids who we don't know about. It's a difficult process because, you know, with the timescales, you haven't got time to generate and find out who's doing what.
So what would we, yeah.
Trying to let yourself know to those out there who are putting in bids.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to talk across you. So Peter, as well, to answer that, we have already met with the council and the Healthcare Trust, and we will continue to liaise and meet with them. And again, it's about, well, if you're going for a bid, would it be better if we supported the voluntary and community organisations to support that bid, which might be a way forward, or is it that the voluntary and community sector want to do it completely on their own with a voluntary sector lead, in which case, you know, they're two slightly different conversations. So we're just trying to keep the communication channels open as much and as quickly as possible. And hopefully by the end of this morning's session, we'll have some idea as to whether the you know, people in the room want to submit a bid via a lead voluntary organisation, or whether they'd want us to share that information with our statutory colleagues and hopefully, you know, get through the door that way. So yeah, there are no hard and fast answers here, I'm afraid. Elzbieta, sorry.
Yes, well, I totally echo what Peter's just said, okay, and forgive me, but I don't think we've got time to as you said, flap around it. I've got a question for Angela. Does it mean that Walsall Metropolitan Borough Council will be putting a bid? That's my question number one. If that's the case, I don't think Dave, it's a good idea to just let people run loose without having the knowledge of who's doing what, because otherwise we will be all shooting ourselves in the foot. As Peter said, it's then a complete waste of time for all of us, okay? So we do need to know who's putting what bid. So if you could help us to facilitate, to get this information as quickly as possible, it's just trying to be as strategic as we possibly can. In terms of Walsall College, I'd rather leave that one aside, because as a statutory body, I'm just wondering, you know, they've got millions that they're already getting. So I don't want to get into discussion on that one. But of course, you know, as you said, Dave, everybody can bid for that. If I understand correctly, Dee, what you're saying is that one also could be, but not necessarily want to be. So let's rule that one out. Let's just say now, are there any organisations, and what would be the requirement? Because I'm just thinking about the turnover. If we were to put a bigger bid, we have to think about a large voluntary sector organisation who's got the capacity to actually absorb that sort of funding and be considered as a good contender when going through the application process. So I just wanted to know the question to Angela in terms of what bid is going to go through Walsall, in what areas. If that's the case, can we have a quick conversation in terms of how we can complement what the council is perhaps proposing with consultation with other third sector organisations? And my information, because I do apologise because I don't know some of you, but Jeff, if you want to have a conversation outside of this meeting, then I'm happy to back you up, and obviously work in partnership with anybody. That's what ever stands for anyway. But I think we just have to pull it together and be clever about it. So, you know, let's just put, you know, so how quickly can we put it together, and how can we ensure that we complementing and perhaps using strengths of the voluntary sector in Walsall to focus on all those strands of work that have already been mentioned in this conversation, and allow those organisations to focus what they're already doing, what they're good at, in reaching the communities they perhaps work with or specialise in, and put it as a collaborative partnership bid with support from the council, because this is what I would at least expect from the council, if I'm totally honest. Thank you.
Angela, are you able to come back to Elzbieta?
Yes, I am. I think, yes, in short, the council will be looking at submitting a bid to this fund. The precise details of that we're still working on, because we're in the same situation as you, that, you know, we have to wait for the deadlines for when the prospectus is released by the combined authority and so on. The ideas that we are working on are pretty much linked to the document that Dave shared earlier on around employment and skills. And that's also part of the reason why I'm here observing at this meeting today and answering questions, to also hear feedback and to hear what is of interest to the voluntary and community sector, and to see if there are opportunities perhaps for joint working on that. You know, some of the challenges that we have as a council are that we ourselves are a very large organisation, so we also are having to internally have similar discussions to that which is happening today, to see what all the various teams within the council might want to do, and also, you know, which of those are feasible, because it's very, you know, what is so clear about this is that there's only 6 or 7 months available for delivery, and that makes it very, very challenging of whatever we're putting forward. So, you know, and also as a council, we also are having to go through that same decision process. Is it something that we're putting in as a council on our own? Are there bids that we're going to be putting in as a Black Country with the other Black Country local authorities? And, you know, again, you know, we don't know, unfortunately, whether the college or whether there will be private sector organisations and companies that are putting in bids as well. You know, we're not privy to that information either, unfortunately.
Okay. Elzbieta, you're on mute. Sorry, are you saying something?
No, I think she's talking to somebody else.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. No, that's fine. That's fine. Davina, did you have your hand up? Sorry.
Yeah, I did, but I think David probably answered most of it. It was just in regards to, because it's such a tight time scale that we've got to get the bid in for, I'm wondering whether any interested organisations in kind of putting a bid in, whether is it worth us putting a very basic application of what service and what they can provide, and maybe we collate it, or maybe one also collates all that information, it's ready then, rather than trying to put people sort of groups together, is the information that what they can offer, can they mobilise within that short time scale, because obviously there's going to be delays in recruitment, and if that information was there, even if it's one page, and that information is that, at least then everybody knows what each organisation can provide really. I don't know, it's just an idea I'm thinking, because of the tight turnaround, what's going to be the quickest way to move forward really. I mean, just to let you know, as Black Country Healthcare Trust, we're considering at the moment to putting in a bid. At the moment we've got to jump through lots of hoops because we've got to get the okay from above as well, where the because it's delivered within, I think it's about 6-7 months by the time we get it off the ground. It's going to be delivery time, is where obviously there's risk factors involved in that as well, isn't there, about the delivery time scales, but we're interested at the moment of bidding, so that's why sort of we're here today to look at what partners will be interested. And I'm just thinking with the turnaround time, Davina and David, is whether is it worth having a basic application, one page, and getting people or interested organisations to submit something through, services they can offer, maybe something about evidencing what kind of work they've done before and how many employment results, all the different areas monitoring that's expected is what they're able to provide some evidence-wise. Because I suppose previously we'd probably go down the route of making all these checks, making sure systems in place that organisations can deliver. We haven't got that time, so it's looking at now having that information ready. At least then it's going to be a quick turnaround of putting that information, collating it all together.
Yeah, agree, Tamina. I think I'll just go over to Elspieta in a moment, because I know she wants to ask Angela another question. But I think just going back to the point about One Walsall being a lead, I think I wouldn't discount that fact, because you know, people may want to contact us either during this meeting or after this meeting to say that they would like to be a lead. I can understand why people would not want to say that within this meeting at this particular moment in time. But if we feel that actually the best for the sector is for One Walsall to collate the bid, obviously we're not a service delivery partner, we would just be collating the bid and putting it in under our name and managing the contract and all that kind of thing. And following on from what you were saying, Tamina, putting ideas on a page and seeing what we could do in relation to the investment priorities, then absolutely we would do that to support the sector. What we don't want to do is take away anything from a larger service delivery organisation that might actually be better placed to be the lead organisation, and we would offer whatever support was needed in relation to collating information, supporting with the funding bid, whatever, to get that through. So I know we haven't got time to muck about and faff around, as I've said before, but you know, after today, hopefully we will have a good idea of anyone within the sector who does want to be a lead organisation from a larger organisation, or whether we then make the decision, okay, no one's coming forward, no one's saying anything to us, so we'll work on what we've got and we will pull a bid to bed together. I can see Dave blanching there. Sorry, Dave, but you know, it has to be what's the best for the sector. So sorry, Elspieta, back over to you.
Thank you, Dee. Question to Angela. I understand that you might not be able to answer that at this point in time, but if possible, could we actually have the information in terms of what you are going to put together as a proposal as the council, and also a question in terms of the ESOL provisions. So would that be included in a proposal, as I know that the funding is running out from the allocation from the Ministry of Housing for these provisions. So I'm just wondering if there is any scope or possibility of having or using this opportunity to get further work done around the language support for the BME communities. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I think I know that on the document that Dave shared earlier on, I think provision for ESOL teaching was included in that. At this stage, I don't think I can give you a list of exactly what it is that would be in a council submission, because it's something that we haven't determined yet ourselves. It's a very fluid situation, I think, as you'd appreciate, and you know, we are here you know, with our role to deliver and to reflect also the needs of what our communities need. So just picking up, I think, on what Davina was saying, I know that we would find that really, as a council, would find that really useful if the organisations here today, if you have projects, you know, whatever size they are, but projects that you would like to be delivered in some way, or that you think would fit with this funding, if you could provide one-page summaries of those, and if those were able to be shared with us as a council, then I think that that would help us in terms of being able to prioritise the ideas which are already on the table and being able to see potential partnerships that might be able to be taken up. Okay.
Thanks, Angela. Ray, you put a message in the chat to say, is it possible to have a separate meeting with One Walsall to have some clarity? Did you just mean between yourselves and us, or with other organisations? Because after sorry, carry on.
Just with One Walsall, would that be possible?
Yeah, yeah, we can look at booking something in. That's not a problem. That's not
all right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Has anyone else got any other comments or feedback or questions? Is there an organisation in the room that a statutory, well, we've heard on the statutory organisations from the voluntary sector that may be thinking of putting in a bid, maybe across the Black Country or whatever? Again, can appreciate you might not want to say in this meeting. Thanks, Ray. Okay. So I think, oh, sorry, Peter, you've got your hand. Sorry.
Yeah. Are you able, or would it be useful at this point to just try and map out what you see as the next steps in terms of moving forward from where we are, so that we all know or have an opportunity? Because I mean, one of the things that was mentioned, a really good idea, this one-page CV, as it were, yeah, to be prepared and circulated. But I'm just wondering whether it's possible to actually say, right, well, One Walsall's proposal in terms of the next steps are this, this, and this, and this, or whether that's something that you need to have a think about and then circulate.
I think that's something we need to have a think about, obviously quickly. We're not going to spend ages thinking about it, but I think you're right, Peter. What would be useful if people are happy to share their thoughts on what they could contribute to any of the strands or all of the strands regarding the investment priorities, and if you would want to be part of a partnership moving forward, whether that's under One Walsall, a statutory organisation, or a larger voluntary and community sector organisation. It doesn't have to be much. It just has to be, you know, a few lines of what you feel you could deliver. And yes, you can email me. I think everyone's got my email address. I'll put it in the chat if not. And then we will get back to you in the next couple of days as to where we are going with this. And as I said, we are having conversations with our statutory partners. We are having conversations with other voluntary and community sector organisations. And it may be that, you know, as I say, we come back to you and say this, you know, this organisation wants to be a lead and may be able to include you. So, Dave, I don't know whether if that sounds okay to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we put a small template together and send it out straight after this meeting, I think it'd be interesting to know, you know, if anybody wants to be the lead partner, if they can tell us on the form. Yeah, as people said, you know, experience of what they've done before, how easy it's going to be for them to mobilise the service, whether it's an extension of what they're already doing or trying something different, so we just get a flavour of what they want. We can get that shared across all our contacts, and then we can also look to see, you know, if there is a obvious linking together of groups within the sector talking about the same thing. You know, we can then look to see if there's opportunities for us to work as a sector as well. But I think it's getting that information, and it's about sharing that information, I think, ASAP. And really, I think decisions have to be made within a couple of days, as Dee said, as to how we're going to go forward, because these partnerships need to start coming together and start working up the bids, because we're looking at sort of 2.5 weeks. So that's how I see it. And if, you know, it's about groups telling us what they want, and we'll share that information as far and wide. And, you know, we'll start fostering those conversations with partners to encourage them. You know, I think it would look good for partners. You know, it says in the guidance that they're keen to work for the voluntary sector to be involved in this process. So I think we have to keep pushing that message out to our statutory partners that, you know, your bid will be enhanced. This is the range of services that we can offer. These are the groups who can offer these services and work like that. And it may be that we work with some of the statutory partners to write the bids. Certainly, if they're going to involve the voluntary sector as well, we'd be happy to work, you know, with statutory partners to get bids written. If it's just going to be for their own, they can write their own bids, but if they involve the voluntary sector, then we're happy to support it. But I think it's getting this stuff happening ASAP, and it's getting decisions made, because it's not something we can talk about and hang around about. I think, Elizabeth, you mentioned, you know, we can't sit on our hands and wait for things to happen. We've got to go out. And I think, you know, in fairness to Angela, she's the councillor in exactly the same situation we are. I'm sure they're getting various departments saying, yeah, we'd like some of that money, but, you know, they can only work with so many, they can only sort of support so many bids. So I think everybody's in the same boat, but, you know, everybody's got to very quickly, you know, decide what they're going to go with and move forward on that basis.
I think, yeah, thank you, Dave. I think, you know, we're not going to chase people on this. So if you don't give us your information, we're not chasing you, and we will assume that, you know, you're deselecting yourself, and we understand that. And so what day are we today? Tuesday. So I would say by close of play tomorrow, so by 5 p.m. tomorrow, if you do want to submit your information, it really is just a paragraph about what your organisation is, where you see yourself fitting in, and what services you would want to deliver as part of this that meet the key priorities. Then that would be brilliant. Is that okay? Jeff, you've got your hand up again, and then Elzbieta.
It's just reflecting upon the timescales of this particular group of people. That does it make sense to have a repeat of this next week, but only for those who are really concrete in bringing forward projects? Because I'm still interested in sharing of ideas. We haven't even worked up the ideas, but I'm suggesting by next week that, you know, bilateral and multilateral conversations will have taken place. And I see this as potentially a clearinghouse for discussing hard and fast projects going forward.
Yeah, definitely we can host however many meetings we need, Jeff. And it may be maybe, you know, we can bring together by this time next week. We've got some statutory partners who we can link up with you guys, and you can have a conversation with them. It's flexible. We'll do whatever we need to get some bids out that involve the voluntary sector.
So Dave, I'm just looking at diaries. Thank you, Jeff. Good idea. And as usual, everything's absolutely rammed. I think, Dave, the only time that you and I could potentially do this is between 10 till 12 next Monday morning. I appreciate Mondays aren't great for this, but if people who are still interested, even if we're just feeding back on the information we've got and where we are, and even if we're not going to be the lead organisation or whatever, then next Monday, 10 till 12 would be a date we could do. Sorry, take it or leave it. Sorry.
Sorry, Dee, so can we just book that slot with you lot? With you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I think we have to move fast, don't we? It's just, you know, we either in or out, as simple as that. Also, can I just double check, because Dave said he's going to send a form, and Dee, you said you would expect an email. So can I just confirm with you two? Will you be sending us like an expression of interest form that
yeah,
we'll fill in?
We'll get one put together after this meeting, and I'll get it out this afternoon to everyone.
So, okay, lovely, thank you.
Jeff, did you want to say anything else? Sorry, your hand's still up.
No, sorry, I'll put my hand down.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat. It should be in there. I'll put it in there again, just if anyone's missed it. davinal@onewalsall.org. Okay. So, has anyone got any final comments or questions? Does anyone feel that? Sorry, Jeff.
Don't panic.
Don't panic. Don't panic. Does anyone feel any further forward? Maybe not. Yeah. Okay. Well, we did book this meeting until midday, but if people